Welcome to Dan the Road Trip Guy. I'm your host, Dan, and each week we'll embark on a new adventure, discovering memory and life lessons of our incredible guests. From everyday travelers to thrill seekers and everyone in between, this podcast is your front row seat to inspiring stories of passion, resilience, and the pursuit of happiness. So buckle up and enjoy the ride. Okay, I have to start this episode by giving credit where credit's due. My wife, Linda, she's the one who introduced me to today's guest, and I am really glad she did. My guest is Tony Suriano. He's an actor, director, filmmaker, podcast host, newly published author, and he's a magician. Yes, all that in one person. I've only known Tony for a few weeks, but honestly, it feels like much longer. He's one of those people who shows up with a ton of positive energy and a clear sense of purpose, and I must say, it's contagious. Tony's new book is due out near the end of the month. It's titled, Direct Your Life or Someone Else Will. I know you're going to enjoy this one, so let's get to it. You know, maybe I should have Tony say, action, and we'll roll, but I'll just go with Tony. Welcome to the show.
Thank you so much, Dan. I'm excited to be here. Hit me with whatever you got. This is going to be a fun conversation.
I want to give you a couple minutes. Maybe we're riding up on an elevator in a big, tall building, but tell my listeners, who is Tony Suriano?
I am a man that loves my wife. So if you're listening, Care Bear, I love you first. And second, I'm a creative. I love challenges. And I love making things with my hands. I like shooting things with my camera. I enjoy magic, as you mentioned. I've been a magician since I was 12. I met a guy in an airplane, and he taught me magic for 3 hours. It was really cool. I'm all about trying to tap into the better me because I know I have a jerk side in me sometimes. And when that side comes out, I don't like it. So I'm always trying to do better, be better, and feel better.
I should have added, you are from California, but now you're in Cincinnati.
It's a great relief. You know, you go from crazy traffic to not so much traffic. So that's a big deal.
Let's get started. And this is Dan, the road trip guy. First question is always, tell me about your first car or tell me a funny car story.
All right. This takes me back. My very first car, I gathered all the money I could. I looked, I searched. I was always into classic things, vintage things. And I found a 1962 Mercury Comet with little fins. And I convinced my dad to take the drive an hour and a half away in this place called Bakersfield. And I bought the car and I drove it back alone, and you should have seen my smile. I felt free. It was like this American dream happening in real time. I had this bigger steering wheel. On the side of the car, you would see these blue Japanese wave type things. They look like scales or they look like bubbles or Japanese waves. It was all white other than that. And that was a fun trip because it didn't break down. You know, it's an old 1962 and it got me all the way home. And for the next couple of years, I learned how to work on cars because it was simple, right? I didn't want to get too advanced with the newer cars, but it was simple enough to change my own oil, you know, and feel what it's like to have some patience and some more challenges, learning some new things. It was fun.
I should have hung on to that.
Yeah. I let it go because I had a couple motorcycles at the time and I was getting a new car for a road trip. So I just had to let it go. But, you know, funny story, that car in the San Fernando Valley, it started to get known because it was very wild looking. And I didn't get it like, oh, I want significance. I did want to feel like I was in a time capsule. And I used to turn on 50s and 60s music all the time driving that. But people would yell stuff at me like, oh, I like your bubbles. It was just really funny.
Motorcycles. So now you had a motorcycle. Tell me about the first motorcycle.
Well, the first one was a Honda Shadow. And I didn't want to tell my dad. He was a motorcycle rider, but he bailed when he was 27 and then never got another one. But I didn't want to tell him I was in college and I used some of my scholarship to buy a motorcycle. And it wasn't that expensive, but I used that and I drove back, showed up to my dad's house and he's like, how'd you get here? He's an Italian. How'd you get here? Where's your car? Oh, no, I came with that. What, the blue Lincoln? No, the motorcycle. He said, the motorcycle? What are you, crazy?
That's good. Wow. I think you mentioned to me a motorcycle trip, so we'll get to that one. But maybe that is your epic road trip. Tell me about a epic road trip in your life.
I've had several, but what comes to mind, and it is with a motorcycle, it's with a train, a bus, and hitchhiking. So it must have been 2010, and I went to this seminar for real estate and for financial investing. I had a little money, so I got there. I took a train, showed up. I knew one person there, chatted with him, and I got to know this other guy, and I wanted to continue the trip. So I met this one guy, and I hitchhiked with him back to New Orleans. And it was the strangest ride, I tell you. Every 10 minutes, he would ask me what time it is. He'd like turn to me and be like, what time is it now? I'd look and I'd say, oh, it's 10:11. And it was just this weird thing going all the way across. It was 7 hours or something. And I went to New Orleans. I stayed in a hostel. I met some really great friends, hung out for a week there. But it got really interesting when I decided to buy a motorcycle, a Honda Goldwing, 1980. Okay. I'm a vintage dude.
I got to ask you how old you were when you had a Goldwing.
Late 20s or something like that.
Yeah. Most Goldwing riders, are a little bit older.
I just wanted a classic, again, somewhat of a classic, and I wanted a comfortable one. And I put speakers on it. I mean, I made it mine. The funny part of this story is, and there's a lesson in here, I'm sure, I called this guy. I said, hey, I'm interested in your motorcycle. And he said, all right. He was kind of like spoke fast and kind of had this like happy, aggressive voice. And he said, okay, look, give me a deposit and then I'll pick you up at the train station. And I was like, okay, internet deposit. And I talked with him for a while and I just had to go with my gut. I trusted him. I sent him a little deposit and I took the train ride. And then when I showed up, I waited. I'm not kidding you. It wasn't 2 hours for the guy. It wasn't 4. It was around 6 hours. Luckily, I brought a book and I like reading. So I was hanging out there. He'd call me and be like, oh, I'm coming. Don't worry. I just had to do this thing. All right. I'm just sitting there. Finally, he comes in and I notice that this is the guy. We get in his car and the first thing he does is he like punches me on the shoulder and is like, man, all right, well, I'm glad you're here. Want to go get your bike? And I was just like, wow, this guy reminds me of my stepdad. And I was ironically wearing my 1984 leather jacket from my stepdad. So we went down to his little place in Tampa, Florida. It was a little, let's just call it was ghetto, but it was interesting. So I went there and he asked me, he said, well, we need to change the oil, but it's late. Listen, why don't you crash at my place and I'm going to go sleep in my girlfriend's house. And then tomorrow morning I'll come over, we'll change the oil, you go on your way. And it was late because he showed up so late. What are you going to, you have to change the oil, he said, and it's dark. The funniest thing, I don't know if it was just my gut or my lack of travel experience, but I just said, all right, sounds good. He's like, yeah, get whatever you want in the fridge, blah, 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 bye. And, I'm there. Now, I look to my right and after he leaves and I see like this spear for diving, those big diver guns?
Yeah. Uh-huh.
And then I look around, this place is a little disheveled. Look in the fridge. I don't want anything from that fridge. Then I look on the wall and I see all these pictures. He told me he was a previous wrestler. And I see pictures of him and Hulk Hogan.
Okay.
In wrestling uniforms. And there's like not one, there's several and all this memorabilia. And I was just smiling and just thought, this is such a funny, interesting situation. I laid down that night. I texted my sister and I said, hey, listen, if you find me dead with the spear through me, this is where I am. This is what happened. And to wrap that bizarre story up, the next morning he called me. Or I tried to get in touch with him. He finally got back to me. He said, hey, can you feed the cat when you leave? I'm like, when I leave, aren't you going to come and help me with the oil? He's like, well, that would be really later. And I've already paid him and I have the contract already. I'm like, this is weird. Okay. I go get oil. I change the oil myself. I feed his cat. I lock the door. I go on my way.
As a filmmaker, this sounds a little like a film. Did you ever make one about this?
That's funny. I have not yet, but it's definitely logged. And I like to derive lessons through experiences. And if I had to pinpoint the lesson there, it's really important to know how to read people. Because if I wasn't half decent at reading people, I could have been in hot water. Sure. And I thought at the time, with the turnout, I read that guy pretty well, and I had a funny story now to tell you.
A great story. Well, I might have not have mentioned in the intro, you're an actor also, but really want to talk about your dad's an actor. What point in your life did you go, this is what I want to pursue? And what does that path look like?
Yeah, the path. The path. I was a little bit of a dabbler, and that was probably not a smart thing to do. But dabbling, meaning I would watch my dad and my uncle and my godfather, they would be acting and they're professionals and they make money. And I would say, oh, I want to be like that. And this is at a young age. And I thought about it. That's probably why I pushed and changed high schools and got into a little play program, which made me really nervous, but I just wanted to push. But I didn't ask my dad, hey, I want to do that. What do I do? Do I need to do this, this, this? I just assumed that maybe if I'm ready, he would tell me or someone, it would just happen. So years passed, teenager, early 20s. And by early 20s, I was already directing little short films and playing with a camera. I would put myself in front of the camera. I put it online, but I wasn't sharing it that much. I wasn't showing it to everyone. And I was maybe every now and then going on to an audition that was not really like a high level one. It was just something I found online. It wasn't through an agent. I didn't have an agent. That happened for a while. But when I was 24, I did have my first paid acting experience, and it was through my own means. I found a place that would accept me to pitch a commercial for them, and they had the option to buy it. And I was the actor, the director. I asked my friend to help with some things, and they bought it for $7,500, and that was the beginning of my directing career, but technically also my acting because I was in the commercial.
You're doing it all.
Yeah, I mean, it was part ego and then part real excitement because I loved filmmaking. I still do. I love tweaking things and trying to get it how I see it in my head onto the camera or the computer eventually. But from there, I had a lot of ups and downs. I moved like 12 times in the next 4 or 5 years, just a lot of more adventures. And then finally, my dad got the call and he got a part in the movie The Irishman. It's a Martin Scorsese film. And I've heard about it coming out in the last 2 or 3 years before that it was probably going to happen. But we didn't hear anything. And finally it did. And I said to my dad, oh my gosh, can I come? This would be amazing. I would love to come. And he's like, yeah, I can't ask those questions. Sorry. So I went anyway. So I went to New York and I tried to find the production office and where they're filming and all that. And I happened to know one of the actors' assistants. So I called him. I was like, hey, I'm in New York. I haven't talked to you for a while, but my dad's in the film, but he couldn't ask anything. Can I get on set? Is there any way? So I eventually got on set. Yeah. And it was an amazing experience. I learned so much.
We're going to go back and watch now that we know. We watched it, but we didn't know you. So
yeah.
That's cool.
It was fun. It was a fun turnout. If anyone listening wants to hear the whole story, you probably can search me or something on YouTube, and I have a speech where I'm sharing about the whole journey because it's quite a crazy journey.
I'm going to put a link to that because we watched it yesterday. Linda and I did, and it was very cool. Well, speaking of that, I don't recall if he was a mentor or just a guy you ran into, but somebody really poured some positive thoughts into you about being an actor. I think his name was Chad, if I recall correctly.
My good old friend Chad. So up until the point I met Chad, I was floundering about doing some directing and just, again, dabbling acting just on my own style. I never had the confidence to say, I'm an actor, let's do it. Hey, agent, let's do it. I just didn't have that. There's many reasons why, but at the time I met Chad, I didn't. But I was a writer. I felt confident about writing scripts and directing. So I met Chad. We got to know each other. And Chad's a left-handed, crazy writer like me, and he's a magician like me. And we hit it off. And over the months and the years of getting to know each other, he said, Tony, you're an actor. Why aren't you pursuing it? What are you doing? And I was like, yeah, I love it. I know I act. I do some things here and there, but I'm directing. He says, listen, try it out. The next person you meet, just say, hey, I'm Tony. I'm an actor. And he said, listen, seriously, say, hi, I'm Tony. I'm an actor. And I really respected Chad and his ambitions and his straightforward directness. So I tried it and I started saying that. And I also added a director sometimes, and that felt good because I didn't usually start conversations like, oh, I'm Tony, I'm a director. I didn't say that. And it really helped me embody that role and the fun that it is when you are pursuing that. And it helped me just bring the confidence so I didn't have to like be loud about it, but I could be quietly confident about it.
Yeah.
And that's what happened over time.
You spoke life into it, basically.
Yes. I believe in writing things in life, into the life, and then speaking things if you can speak with this blessed vocal cords, you and I have.
Yeah.
But there are many ways to embody it. And that was one of them.
Magic. Take me on that. Were you just fascinated as a kid with magic? Have you done it professionally? I don't know.
Yeah, I've pursued magic professionally for a period, but most of the time it's just been fun to do, and it helped me break out of my shell, and it did a lot for me. Right now, I put it on the back burner while I'm doing other things. I've been writing this book. It's coming out soon, and then directing. There's just a lot. You can't do everything at once all the time, or you'll have none.
What's your favorite magic trick that you ever did? Is there one, or is that kind of like, I'll tell people tell me and they go, hey, it's like all my children. And I know you don't have children yet, but soon you will, right?
Yes, I will. And I can't wait to perform magic for this new child.
Yeah.
I do have a moment. I haven't shared this for a long time, but in Los Angeles, there's a museum and it's called the Getty Center. And they had a Houdini, one of the most famous magicians.
Sure.
They had his exhibit. And I took a date. And back then, I didn't ask girls out. But this time, I was starting to break out of my shell. I asked her on our first date, let's go to the exhibit. We walked around. And then at the end, I got this surge of magic and confidence. And I gathered the group of the tour. And I was like, excuse me, guys and ladies and gentlemen, I think it's fitting for some magic to happen at the Houdini visit. At the exhibit here. Sir, pick a card. And I eventually had their card picked, put back into the deck. And then while I was 7 to 10 feet away from them, I had another person come over here and I named the card, and then they tried to find the card. They couldn't find the card. And then I said, you, sir, could you come over here and just check your pockets or something? Because I feel like there's some energy floating that way. And this guy that was 10 feet away from me walked over. He looked around and he felt his back pocket. Something was in there. He pulled out the card, and his face, I'll never forget. He lit up with joy and wonder. Then I thanked everyone and we took off.
That's cool. We used to, when I was growing up, we grew up in small towns in Kentucky. But once a year, we would have a magician come for school. This was an elementary school, and he would perform. And I always thought that was just so cool.
I love magic. Yes.
Yeah. You mentioned a book hanging on your wall back there, I guess. Is that the cover?
That is the cover back there, yes.
Yeah.
This is my Direct Your Life set where I do my podcast, Direct Your Life, and film other content. Yeah.
But the book's titled Direct Your Life or Someone Else Will?
Yes, Direct Your Life or Someone Else Will. And then there's a short little subtitle that helps you understand what it's about, and that is Stop the Reruns, Take Back Control, and make your life better than any movie.
Okay. Then when's this book come out?
This book comes out, well, the launch date is set to April 30th as of now.
April 30th.
Sometimes things shift in that world, but I'm pushing to stick with that right now. The pre-orders are open.
Who's going to want to read this? Everybody?
No, not everyone. I urge you, if you're interested, to go to directyourlifebook.com and check out who it's for and who it's not for. But I'll tell you, it's not for spectators that want to watch from the sidelines. It's people that are ready to step in the arena and actually direct their lives. It's not for dabblers like how I used to be, dabbling in acting. I'll pretend that I'm going in it. I used to do that to protect myself and to protect my ego. I didn't ask people to help me on my film projects because if they failed, it would just be, it's just me. No one knows. But if I asked people to join my project and it failed, then everyone knows. And that's when your ego kicks in. So that's the dabbling mind. And if you're going to live a great life and direct your life so you can be a better person to be around, you can't dabble. You can't be a spectator. And you need to step up. And inside this book, I have cinematic stories. They're personal, but I utilize them. It's a me story with a you meaning, so you could attach and remember them with some of the steps and lessons that I bring about on how you can make your life more fun, more playful, and keep the curiosity.
So have you been writing this book in your mind for a long time?
That's a good question. All of 2025, I worked crazy hours on this book. And then there was a couple months I did nothing and I got distracted. And the perfectionism part of me came in. And then I killed it. And then I went back and I worked as hard as I could into 2026, finished it about a month ago. But I think I've always wanted to write a book. And I think a lot of people, you can ask anyone, and most likely they're like, oh, I thought about it once or twice. And it's a fun thing. But a lot of people, we might feel like, well, I don't, what do I know? Like, what message do I have? But I believe that most people have a message, and whether they want to write a book or just do something different or go out and help people in their own way, like, it's important. So I realized, wait a minute, I've had a crazy life. Maybe I could pull some messages and package them that are memorable and can impact someone. And I really believe it will impact people to help, again, make their life better than any movie. And that's a big claim, but I know that I've given all I can in the book. I give 15 steps, the specific beats that actually make a great film. And I've shifted it so you can apply those beats to your life. So you will have the steps, and it is possible to make your life better than any movie. You got to put in the work.
I love it. Can't wait. Linda's already ordered her copy, so I'm good to go. You have a podcast also.
Yes, I do.
How often does that come out?
You've beat me for sure. I saw you're pretty scheduled. You got your weeklies. I was on this grandiose idea of having 2 a week, and I did it for 4 months. Then it was every week, and then I skipped a few, maybe 4 weeks, and then now it's just randomly. I'm getting back on track though, and the reason was for the bigger dream, which is getting this book out to the world. Like I said, if you try to do too many things at the same time, it's tough. And then you get watered down material. So I didn't want to do that, just push for a podcast. Yeah.
You know what? As long as they keep coming out. That's what I talked to a couple of podcasters and they're like, just keep them coming. Don't worry about it. I had a run there for about a month. I had one every week and I fell off last week. So now I've got you. I've got one more that I need to edit down. And I've got plans for another one. So I'm doing better in 2026.
Good.
It's a lot of work.
Yeah. And people appreciate you putting this content out there because we need to consume good content and less crap tent.
Yes. You know, my belief, everybody has a story. And that's all my podcast is about, is getting other people's stories. All right. So you did mention your godfather. Don't want to do any name dropping here, but who's your godfather?
Yeah, I'll share. First, I used to not ever tell anyone this, and I don't know exactly why, other than I just didn't want the spotlight on me growing up.
Yeah.
But then eventually I was always proud of my godfather. I've always looked up to my godfather. He's taught me so many things. Mm. And my godfather is Joe Pesci, the gangster himself. If you haven't seen any Joe Pesci movie, you just need to watch 2 first, and that is Goodfellas, and then Casino, and then after that, you should probably watch Raging Bull. So that's been a fun, interesting life of lessons whenever I've been around Joe.
Imagine today you could take a road trip with anyone, living or deceased. Who would it be? Where would you go? What would you talk about? Several guests lately have wanted to take a bus, so do whatever you want to. Oh,
that's funny. Yeah, I'm not a bus guy.
No, you're a motorcycle guy.
Yeah, motorcycle and spacious SUVs. The first person that came to mind, and I'll just go with it and let's explore it. James Dean passed away in 1954, and I always grew up watching his old movies and wondering what it's like, and I knew he was into cars and experiences and all that. So I think it'd be fun to go road tripping with him currently, because then he would be learning all these crazy new things we have in 2026, and I'd be the tour guide. We would talk about just how everything changed and how people have changed but still have the same problems in a way. And I have a funny little side note about James Dean. I grew up on the street that he lived on.
Wow. Okay.
Isn't that wild? Like
That is kind of crazy.
Yeah, it's Sutton Street in Sherman Oaks, California. And I remember when I bought my motorcycle, I used to go down the street and I would just feel like, wow, I'm riding the trails, of James Dean. He was doing this. And he had a life, he was a person. It's just so interesting and magical, and what a wild turnout, right?
Yeah. What are you going to drive?
What am I going to drive? Definitely classic car. My dad had a 57 Fairlane, white and red, and I would like to drive that. But maybe it would be upgraded with, I don't know if they had air condition in that model, but it would be great
Probably
to have
not.
air condition, maybe an extra set of something in there, get some modernness, but where you don't know it's even there.
I like it. That would be a fun trip.
Yes.
What's on your bucket list?
What a great thing to ask, because I gotta say, so many people know what they don't want, but they don't think about really what they do want. I'm going to start with experiences, and I'm going to go back to the experience with my wife, because she's experienced a lot of great things with me since she moved from the Philippines here, and that's how we got married. But there's been a few years, whether it's a project like this book, where I was kind of grounded and we couldn't go out and do a big experience that year. And I would love to take her on a balloon ride with dinner, candlelight.
Yeah.
That would be really exciting.
Yeah.
And it's doable. I just have to do what we all forget is so easy, is to just schedule it on the calendar, but far enough out so we can prepare for it and then look forward to it.
You must do that.
Yes.
And you can even do that here in the beautiful Midwest.
Yeah. That's what comes to mind with the bucket list. I would like to give you one more.
Well, sure.
I did ride across the country with a motorcycle, and that was amazing. It was solo. I learned so much about communication, confidence, and just my self-awareness. But I would love to do that with a really close friend. I have never done a long road trip on motorcycles with a great friend. I think that would be really fun. Just the tripping across the country with a good friend and someone that's adventurous, where you're not having to cater the trip. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
That'd be fun.
Hey, you've written this book, Direct Your Life. Someone else will. Leave my listeners with some life advice. How to live a wonderful life, a better life, a great life.
Well, I first would say, I want to, quote, qualify myself to even mention that. At this time of my life, even with a lot of adversity the last few years that I won't go into detail, I would say 90% of the time I'm happy and I'm fulfilled and I'm chasing something that is coming to fruition and lighting me up like a Christmas tree. So if you actually want a playful life, a curious life, a life that feels like it's not just a grind, you don't want to just grind for the goal. You want to enjoy the journey, right? So I think first comes self-awareness, which will then help you decide, are you in alignment with what truly matters to you? And that could be with relationships, career, home life. There's so many things that applies to, but it starts with awareness. And once you really get a little bit in alignment, you don't have to be perfect. You need to just get excited that you're here, that you have a chance another day, and you can take action. And that's the equation. Awareness, get excited, take action. And then from that action, you're going to fail, but be proud to fail, because you'll have feedback from failure and you'll learn and you'll grow more than succeeding. And success is great too. But I believe if you take the actions and you take the lessons from it, you will gain more confidence. And then there's a loop. I call this the director's loop.
Okay.
You know that? And I believe if you're listening or watching here and you feel a little out of alignment, do a little journaling. Go on a long walk without your phone. Have some solitude and actually ask yourself, what do I want? What lights me up? And then get excited and take some action and learn and get that confidence up. And you'll be more fulfilled more often.
Great advice. We live in a noisy world and you can get distracted easily. People can place their dreams on hold. So yeah, I think that's great advice. Tony, this has been an absolute pleasure for me.
Me too, Dan.
Yeah. But before we go, how do people find you, the book, your podcast, whatever you want them to find?
Thank you so much for having me. And and having this wonderful conversation. You have great questions. People out there that want to pre-order this book or find out more about me, go to directyourlifebook.com. That's where you can pre-order the book. If you want to check me out on the socials, it's at Tony Suriano. You'll find all the links you need somewhere amongst those. I'll keep it simple.
All right. It's been a pleasure.
Thank you. Ditto. I hope we have a part 2.
I hope so. Okay. Thank you for tuning in to Dan, the Road Trip Guy. I hope you enjoyed our journey today and the stories that were shared. If you have any thoughts or questions or stories of your own, I'd love to hear from you. Feel free to reach out to me anytime. Don't forget to share this podcast with your friends and family and help us to spread the joy of road trips and great conversations. Until next time, keep driving, keep exploring, and keep having those amazing conversations. Safe travels. And remember, you can find me on the internet at dantheroadtripguy.com.